Yes, this meeting will be recorded. So if you can just go ahead and click got it. So that way you can access the recording later on. We ask you to keep the cameras on, but we totally understand Zoom fatigue. So if you need to keep the cameras off, that's totally fine. We understand. Obviously, for more connectivity, for more interaction, the cameras on are better. We will be dividing you in a few groups called the breakout rooms. And during those times, so 5-minute times for breakout, we will ask you to turn on your cameras. We're actually going to be using the chat box. So just to see who is there, I'm going to ask you to type in on the chat box, let's say, who is your favorite soccer player? So it could be somebody who is playing right now. It could be somebody that inspires you. I just want to see who is with me here. Very good. Thank you, Mustafa Zidane. Very good. 1994 Maradona, my son, Messi. I love it. All right. I see that everybody knows how to use the chat. That's great. Always Messi. That's great. I'm laughing because I'm from Brazil, so I'm all about Pelé and Neymar, but I do like Messi too. Very good. Thank you. All right. So this is the chat. You can message to everyone, but if you want just to send something just to Kayla or to myself, you're welcome to do an anonymous one as well. Okay. Nice to meet you, Luis. There you go, from Colombia. Bienvenido. Okay, so questions you may again ask on the chat. We will have certain times where we'll ask you if you have any questions. So if we haven't addressed your question during the lecture, then you're welcome to ask us more during this Q&A periods. We're also going to be using Mentimeter. Menti is a way for us to do, it's like a polling system. So we're going to do a test right now. So for you to do this, you can either use a second device like a phone or iPad, or just open a second browser on your phone. So what we're going to do now, I'm going to take you to Mentimeter. And all you need to do is type in, either on your phone or a second browser, just type in menti.com. And it will ask you for a code. The code number is on the screen right on the top here, 42584562. And so the question to you, and this is just a test, we're just trying to see if people can join us at Menti. So if you had a chance, if you had to eat one meal every day for the rest of your life, what would it be? Oh, I see some answers coming. Sushi. Yes, sushi. Steak, chocolate, homemade vegetable soup, perfect for this weather. Sushi. Very good. We have about 20 people here, so I'm going to wait a little bit more for some answers. And if you don't know, just answer anything you want. We just want to see your participation on Menti. Fruits, ooh, tacos. Very nice. So throughout this presentation, we're going to be using Menti. So keep that on, okay? We're still receiving some answers, 9 responses so far. All right. Very good. So this is just so you know how we use it, but during the presentation, we're going to be practicing a little bit more. Pizza, here we go. Thank you. Thank you for those who answered. All right, let's go back to our presentation. Okay, so today's agendas, we're going to talk about autism, then we're going to jump into some of the support strategies. So these are strategies that we've been using in our programs for the last 15 years, and we're happy to be able to share them with you. And then at the end, we'll leave you with some support. So if you are interested in learning a little bit more beyond this hour and a half, we're going to leave you with some resources that you can do on your own. Now, who here has heard or maybe worked or maybe saw it on a hockey game? Who has heard of the Canucks Autism Network before? So answer yes or no on the chat for us to see. I see some yeses, some nos. Very good, thank you. So we are a nonprofit organization founded by the Aquilini family, who are part owners of the Canucks hockey team. So their son, Chris, at the time, at school age, they couldn't really find any place where he could go and feel supported. So they started with a small soccer league with just families, a few like 8 or 10 families. And now fast forward 15 years later, we are all over BC. We have over 8,000 members, and we provide programs, recreation and sports program all year long. We also do training like we're doing now, not just for sports, for the sports community, but also for, so we do community center, first responders. I've done trainings at church, businesses, hotels, so you name it. We also have community engagement. We do a lot of family events, fundraisers. We do employment. So we help companies hire kids on the spectrum and also getting them to find jobs. So it's a big engagement and a big work that we do here.
One of my newest jobs is actually with a new department that we started up in peer mental health supports. So we have a few different peer groups that we've started up where people can come and connect and just feel supported by each other.
So thank you. Anyone have any questions about Ken or about what's this training about? All right, I'll pass it on to you, Kayla.
Thank you. So yeah, I'm going to talk a little bit about autism now and what it might look like for some people. Does anybody know what the prevalence of autism is? Can go
So we're talking about kids from 0 to 18.
at 37.
Ask you to either put it on the chat or go to Menti and you can submit. So Luis has a question here. Are we guessing? Yes, you're guessing. What, in your opinion, and we're giving some options here, how many kids, like one in how many in the province are on the autism spectrum? Okay, I think we're pretty divided, but most people think it's 1 in 37. Okay.
1 in 37 is very close. I didn't realize that the Menti doesn't actually have the correct answer anymore.
Oh, that's
So if
new
we go to the
me.
next slide, the new numbers in 2023 are actually 1 in 29 children in BC. and 1 in 66 in Canada.
Thank you. I will correct this for the next presentation. My apologies, everyone. But 1 in 29.
So something that is really important to remember is every autistic person is very different. So one of our favorite sayings at CAN is, if you have met one person on the spectrum, you have met one person on the spectrum. And you shouldn't judge the next person you meet by the last person you met. There is a huge range in language skills, attention span, interests, sensory sensitivities, basically anything that is considered a symptom of autism, or anything really that makes you human, because everybody's different. And this also means that supports vary significantly from person to person. One person might need only a little bit of support, and the next person might need a lot of support. I love this video. So I Can Share My Story is a bunch of people from our membership talking about what it is like for them to be autistic.
Let me know if the sound is working, okay?
Autism.
Autism.
It's an invisible disability.
Basically, it's something that makes it harder for some people to learn.
It's not a contagious disease.
It's a giant range.
To limit one's ability to communicate with people.
Talking isn't something that he normally likes to do.
It affects the way the brain works.
I don't know how to answer this question. I'm just different.
It's like a spectrum.
School is very hard for me.
The school for Chris is it's pretty tough.
And I got bullied really badly because I didn't read body language properly.
I had a challenge about taking transit.
And I liked home ec and dance and sewing.
My plans for the future are
Want to eventually get married, get engaged.
It's pretty difficult to plan too much in the future. We'll go day by day and week by week.
Listen to my heart. Teach my brain.
My peers helped me by giving me social cues when I wasn't on the right track with social interactions.
We'll repeat the material so I can understand it better.
One myth that people should know that autism is not true, that they're not smart.
Most people with autism don't have secret skills.
So I just want to say that not all autism cases are the same. Well, my plans are to be something like a marine biologist, a massage therapist, and possibly own a dog.
If you want to hear some more stories from different individuals, there's also a bunch more I Can Share My Story videos on our YouTube page, which are pretty cool to watch. So some things that you might notice when interacting with an autistic individual is a difference in language skills. Some people are nonverbal. Some people might use really advanced language for their age. And some people might have a lot of words, but not really know how to use them to communicate what they're actually trying to communicate to you. And a lot of people struggle with nonverbal communication. So reading things like body language, facial expressions, tone of voice. So saying exactly what you mean can be really, really important. And reciprocal conversation can be a struggle for some people. They might not notice when somebody else is trying to talk, and you might have to interrupt them, and that's okay. They're not trying to take up all the space. It's just something that they struggle with. And turn taking. Some people don't know when it's not their turn. Some people don't know when it is their turn, and they might need help, just a little bit of verbal guidance, being like, hey, just wait a minute, or hey, you can get in now, that kind of thing. And that can also apply to conversation. They might not know when they can get into conversation, or again, if somebody else is trying to get into the conversation. Behaviors are things like repetitive behaviors, things like lining up toys, what we call self-stimulatory behavior, or stimming, can be any repetitive movement with their body. When I get really excited, I get super bouncy. And I tend to vibrate when I'm really anxious or overwhelmed. And a lot of our participants have a strong preference for routine. And even a small change in routine can be really tough for them. Others don't like strict routine. So that, again, varies from person to person. And sensory sensitivities are something else you might notice. And these are also very different for everybody. They can be hyper, which is overly, or hypo, which is under sensitive to any of the 5 senses. The ones that you'll particularly notice are sound, lights, smell, and tactile or touch. So they might have some struggles with clothing, certain different types of smells. Really bright lights are a struggle for some people. Some people struggle with loud noises. Other people struggle with different pitches of noise, or just too many sounds at once, even if it's really quiet.
One question that we get asked all the time is, if I see a participant doing a repetitive behavior, like they are, let's say they're running in circles or something, should I stop them? And our answer is always, if it's not hurting themselves, if it's not disrupting the group, then most of the time they're just regulating their body. So it's okay. So that happens a lot. But if it's not, again, disrupting anyone, they're not self-harming, that's okay. What you do need to watch is that if the repetitive behavior is not a sign, for instance, of anxiety, something that they're trying to communicate to you and they're not able to do so. So just watching for those signs of anxiety. But in general rule, just having steaming, that's okay. It's just the way that they're regulating their body.
Yeah, and if they're maybe in an inconvenient location for whatever they're doing, maybe redirect them to be like, hey, maybe do this over here, because it can be really important for them to be able to function in that environment as well. So when it comes to my tongue's not working. When it comes to preferred language, we like to use autistic person, or they are autistic. This is identity first language, and it is the most expressed as preferred language in the autism community. Or some people may prefer they are on the spectrum, or on the spectrum. Some people do prefer to say I have autism, but it is a less expressed preference, but again, everybody's different. So asking what their preferred language is, just like asking what preferred pronouns are. It's really important. It makes a person feel accepted when you use the language that they prefer. And when it comes to person with a disability, they may prefer she is disabled or they have a disability. For somebody who uses a wheelchair, they may prefer he is a wheelchair user or she uses a wheelchair. And when I talked about support needs in the beginning, that is a very important focus. And we're trying to get away from people using functioning labels to using support labels. And they're not directly interchangeable. Some people will be like, oh, she was high functioning, so she has low support needs. Whereas the person who is viewed as high functioning, they might actually have a lot of support needs. And when you assume that they don't have those support needs and take them away, it can be really harmful. Whereas forcing too many support needs on somebody who used to be labeled as low functioning could also be very harmful. So we like to say things like, she needs a lot of support, or they don't need support putting on their jacket, but they need support with cutting and painting. Instead of using those, he is high functioning or she is low functioning labels. And when it comes to communicating differently, saying things like, she uses an iPad to communicate, or they communicate using sign language, instead of he doesn't communicate, because everybody communicates in some way, shape, or form. Behavior is communication. Sounds are communication. And it's really important to recognize that and not just assume somebody can't communicate because they don't talk.
We have a question here on the chat from Zach. In a nonverbal situation, is sign language an option?
It depends on the person. Some people don't, even though they're nonverbal, don't get trained to use sign language, or they might not have very good use of their hands, because there is some motor skills things that sometimes come along with autism. And so they might be able to use sign language. They might also use a picture communication system, or like it says, communicate with an iPad or another electronic communication system. And sometimes oh, sorry. Sometimes that's pictures. Sometimes they type it out. And yeah.
I was gonna say, for Ollie, my 12-year-old, until he was 10, he was he couldn't communicate verbally. So he had his assistive technology on his iPad, and he will also use not necessarily sign language ASL, but he would point to things, or we would ask him to make a choice, like, do you prefer this or this? And then he will pick our hand. So things like that, more of like a body language situation.
Now we're going to start talking about some support strategies. So there's motivation, communication, and increasing predictability. We're going to start talking about motivation. So when you're thinking about strategies, remember to think about the individuals, because everybody is different. Personal preference, strengths, learning styles are all very important considerations. And not every strategy we give you will apply to every individual that you work with. what we're doing is we are building a toolbox for you to use, and you can use the strategies as they are. You might adapt them a little bit. You might not use them with some people. And it's also really important to collaborate with parents, because parents generally know what works for their child. At least when their child gets a little bit older. When they're really young, everybody's still kind of figuring things out. But if you can talk to the parents, talk to them, because they can help you narrow down what's going to work and what's not going to work, and save you a lot of time. So building rapport is a very important motivating tool, because if you build a relationship with the child, they are more likely to want to do what you ask them to do. So find out what they like. Do you have any common interests? Can you incorporate their interests into activities? I know a lot of our participants wear what they like on their clothing, especially because clothing can be a really big deal for a lot of our participants. So if it's uncomfortable to even put a shirt on, it can be easier if that shirt has something that they like on it, and it makes them happy in some way other than the texture. Make your activities fun, be silly and energetic. Give lots of high fives. If they're uncomfortable with touch, do air high fives. And use praise. Always use praise for everything. Even the smallest things can be a huge struggle for some of our participants. Some of them have a hard time just getting into the activity. So if they get in and they do it, we're like, hey, you participated. That's amazing. And that increases the chance that they're going to participate the next time, because it was noticed, it was appreciated. And it's important that you tell them exactly what it is that they did right, so they know what it is that you want them to do again. And yeah, as praise goes, catch them doing good. If they're helping their peers, if they're lining up according to the instructions, if they're trying a new skill for the first time, every little thing is really important to notice. And like Mary mentioned earlier, giving choices is a super important thing for motivation, because we all like to know we have options. If we have to do something and we have to do it a specific way, nobody's as motivated as they are if they at least have an option of how they do the thing or what they use to do the thing. So give closed choices of 2 or more options that you can reasonably offer. Would you like to use the yellow ball or the green ball? Instead of telling kids what's not available, give them the choice that is available. I know in our soccer bag at soccer, we have like 5 different colors of balls, and some people prefer the specific color. So giving that option is super important. And you can, if you can make the schedule flexible, you can ask them if they'd like to practice passing or practice shooting. If you're doing a drill where they pass and then one of them shoots, you can ask them which side they want to be on, the passing or the shooting side. And that will motivate them to practice the skill, because they got to choose which part of the skill they practiced. And you can ask them if they want to practice for 5 minutes or 6 minutes. Do they want help practicing the skill, or do they want to do it all on their own? And we're going to do another Mentimeter. What are some closed choices that you could give in your programs?
Okay, so we're back to menti.com, code 42584562. So again, a closed choice instead of saying, so what do you want to do now? Like you're open in a whole spectrum of choices. So rather than doing this, tell us what can you do during your program when you are teaching soccer to your participants? What are the closed choices that you could do?
Besides cutting out the choices that aren't optional in your program, also having an overwhelming amount of choices can be a lot for some people on the spectrum. So so giving them that closed choice, they know, okay, these are my 2 or 3 choices. That's all I have to choose from. I don't have to think of everything that's possible. And that can be really helpful. So we've got, which color ball would you like to shoot with? Shoot on the net or pass to me? Would you like to practice free kicks or passing? Competence or gaming drills? An option of how to score or strike the ball.
And you can also use the choices for non-preferred things or preferred things. So let's say if you're taking a break, you can say, do you want to take a 1-minute break or a 5-minute break? Or let's say they're doing something that they're not a fan of, like I don't know, a dribbling exercise, and you don't see the team too motivated, and you can also use that choice. Let's do this for 5 more minutes or for 10 more minutes, or just get them to choose will empower them to complete the task. All right, we'll go back to the presentation.
So yeah, find what's motivating. We all put more effort in when we have an incentive. We work for a paycheck. Students finish homework so they can relax, play video games. And knowing that an awesome thing is coming after a difficult thing can build motivation to get through it. I also watch my goddaughter 3 days a week, so I get up early because I get to go play with her, and that's a lot of fun. And using first then language is super helpful. I use this all the time with my goddaughter too, and she's not autistic. You go first the hard thing and then the fun thing. Or when we finish the fun thing, then we got to get back to the hard thing. Alternate the hard and then easy or fun activities. Motivate is very motivating to get through difficult tasks. So the example on the side is from our skating program. First, we have to put on our helmet, then we get to skate. This is a big one in our skating programs because helmets can feel awful on your head. So getting the kids to get the helmet on so that they can get on the ice is a big deal. And you might have a similar thing, like if somebody is struggling with the feel of soccer cleats, well, we need to get the cleats on so we can go out and play safely on the field. Things like that. Other examples are first running and stretching, and then we get to do a fun drill. First we clean up, and then we can play a game. First we wash our hands, and then we can have a snack. first drills, then we get to do a scrimmage. What is your then? What is the thing that motivates you to get through difficult tasks?
And again, we're back to mentee.
Little treat after. Yes. High five for completing a task. Celebration after. Telling someone that you completed the task. Positive encouragement. Yes. Another one for me is I like to work hard at my sports because then I get to see how I improved. The success of achieving a simple goal, sense of achievement, just understand that it is achieved and it is done. What is a then for you, Mary?
I was just thinking about that. For me, my den, I work all day and I'm super tired when I get home, but when I see my dog, this is my den when I get to take him out on my walks every day. So I feel like I work hard in the day, and my den is when I get home and I get to see him and play with him and then see my kids. You see my priority. I prioritize my dog and then my kid. But yeah.
The development of problem solving.
All right, I'll go back to presentation.
So something else that we use frequently in our programs is a point system. So they work towards a fun game or activity or a break time. Whatever is their most motivating thing, we pick, okay, we have to get so many points. Our boards go up to 10. And so we can pick any, like from 1 to 10, and they have to get that many points, and then they get whatever their preferred thing is. It's good to start out with a smaller number so that they see the reward faster and then work up, because then once they see the reward the first time, they'll be more willing to do it more times the next. So a point system can be things like a token board, tallies of some sort, stickers, smiley faces, and then they work for the reward, like a game or activity, a toy, etc. I mean, in the real world, you have reward systems in different stores, like Starbucks. You buy so many, you get points, you can get a free coffee. And McDonald's does the same thing. You get air miles, so you can go on a trip.
So one of the things that we did for Ollie was he really likes elevators. So riding the elevator was his reward. So when he was finished the hockey practice, he would, if he did well, if he completed the tasks, and getting all the token boards, then he'll get to ride the elevator a few times at the community center before we went home. So communicating with the parents too, to see what's possible. You're not going to promise them a toy when, you have 30 kids with you and you're not able to. So think about that, what do you have available? What kind of support do you have, and what are the parents agree to?
Yeah. So we have one guy in our Special Olympics skating who his mom, after skating, if he did really well and listened to the coaches, he gets to go to Dairy Queen. So that's his reward. So yeah, it might even be like Mary said, talking to the parents about what they could work for after practice. So this is a really good video example of how to use a token board if that's the way you want to go.
Okay, so obstacle course is all done. Next is the aim game. So we have to get 10 tokens as a group. If we get all 10 tokens, then we get to go on to our next activity. To get a token, you have to show me your best throw. You can get a token even if you don't get it in the target. That is okay. You get a token for good throws. Okay, are we ready? Carl, good waiting. Amazing throw. I like how flat it was. You can get a token. And Brielle, great waiting. How many tokens do we need? 10. How many do we have left? 6. Okay. Gabriel, your turn.
Look! We have 10 tokens on the board.
So, the aim game is all done. So, we get a choice. We can have a choice between a game of What Time Is It, Mr. Wolf? Or a dance party in the shade. Which one do we want?
What request is this?
I like this video also uses the choices, the nice closed choices, and she was praising them a lot for even just waiting nicely, which is a really good example. So we're gonna go into breakout rooms now, and we're gonna work on a motivation scenario. There's a kid at your program who usually just wants to sit in the corner of the gym and not participate. Think back to some of the strategies you learned in this section. As a group, come up with 3 things you could do to motivate this child to join the group and have a good time. Make sure to be specific. Example, I would use first then board and say, first, let's join the group, then we can play Lego. Hints, incorporate an interest, build rapport, first then, and point systems.
Okay, so I'm going to separate you guys in about 4 rooms. Is that okay, Kayla? Or 3? Okay.
And then, yeah, just talk about it amongst yourselves and let us know when you're done.
We'll bring you back in about 5 minutes. Okay.
Hi, Lisa.
Hey, sorry. I'm just kind of working in the background and multitasking.
No worries, I totally get it. I wish we could still see the question.
totally disappeared. I might lose you here too. My
No
connection's sorry.
That's okay.
It was a last minute jump on.
No, I'm glad you were able to make it, and we'll have recordings of it after, so.
Awesome. Perfect.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I know that we always get like triple the amount of registrants because they want to watch the recordings, but
Totally. Yeah. I have Ferrari is here as well with me from Cornell.
hi.
Hello. I'm still here.
Oh yeah, Mark's here too. Sorry. We're just getting going on our regional training camp planning and all those pieces, centers, sorry, planning going, and yeah, multitasking.
Perfect.
Hello.
Oh, hello.
Sorry, I got moved into a room and I was by myself, so I left it and thought I'd try to get into a different room.
Perfect. Well, I can't see the question, so I no longer have it in my head. Do you remember what it is?
No, I can't see the question either, but from what I recalled, it was if you have a participant that is in the corner of a gym, right, that's not participating,
Oh yeah.
how how would you approach that? And I think there was some interest around point systems, showing interests and whatnot. So I'm pretty new to, well, I will be pretty new to this scenario. So have you already discussed it? Sorry, Sohail and Lisa, I'm Chris. I should have introduced myself.
Hi, I'm Lisa. Sorry.
I'm Soleil.
Soleil, sorry. I live in Kamloops, so I volunteer and I coach with Kamloops Youth Soccer Association at the community level, and then I also actually coach at an adult level too. So this is very new to me. That's why I wanted to join this. So have you had any kind of answers to the question yet, or?
Yeah, if I can hop in, I actually have a kiddo on the spectrum, and so I find a question like this is like pretty interesting because it can be so different from one kid to the next. However, if I'm thinking about my own child, I would never go near him. If he was having a moment, I would call it, in the corner of a gym, I would leave him. That being said, that might not work for another kid, right? So it's totally individual, I feel here. So it's a really tricky question to answer because without knowing your player, your kiddo, who you're dealing with, tricky to answer that.
That's a good point. That's a really, really good point. The first thing that came to my mind was to go and actually talk to the parent if the parent was there. If I was a coach, or I would try to find out some details from the parent that would probably know a lot more than I would, right? So
yeah, I would for sure tailor it to the kid because there's some kids who that's not common and maybe they just need a second, and then sometimes there's kids who that is common, and just engaging them and making them feel welcome will make them more likely to participate. I used to work as a support worker in preschools for children with autism specifically. So I have a lot of different thoughts about, yeah, each kid is just so individual and different. It's really hard to answer.
Totally agree. And it looks like we're ending in 4 seconds. So nice to meet you, Chris.
Nice to meet you.
Great. All right. So we were able to divide you guys in 3 groups. Maybe one per group can share some of your thoughts. Any volunteers? Just unmute yourself, and you can share with the rest of us. What are 3 things that you could do to motivate a participant to practice some soccer?
I can speak for our group. We believe we came up with 3. One is to, if they don't want to physically do the activity, engage them with, we want to see how many passes are complete so that they're a part of it, but they don't have to physically be a part of it. The other one is if you do this task, then maybe you can decide the next task we all do. And the other one is to maybe stay with them, or if they have a sibling there that would participate with them so they feel more comfortable, so that they have a buddy system kind of going in to complete the activity.
I love buddy systems. That's great. Thank you very much, Erica. Someone from the other group? If you prefer to use the chat, you could do so.
I'll hop in from our group. We just kind of briefly talked about how it's so individual per kid. I'm a parent of a son with autism, and he's a child that I would never approach if he was needing some space or in the corner. And that being said, if it's somebody else's kid, Chris in our group had another good comment of asking the parent before approaching, because autism is so individual. And I mean, we talk about it all the time. One kid with autism is one kiddo with autism. So yeah, I think approaching the parent is a really good start, because we don't want to trigger them more and set them off. Yeah.
Thanks for sharing, Lisa. That's it. That's it. Yeah. I love those ideas. Anyone else? All right, so we're
I'll
gonna
go.
move on.
Oh.
Okay, thank you. Yes, please go ahead.
Yeah, I'll speak on behalf of our group. I haven't really had the opportunity to work with a lot of kids on the spectrum, but one thing that I found that worked with me and having kids shy away from activities is possibly having them as an assistant coach, assistant team leader, being a peer role model, in getting the activity going, and feeding off of the other kids' enthusiasm within the group. I found that to be very very helpful, and it might differ from group to group, person to person. So I thought it was a great idea. It's the only idea we were able to come up with. So.
That's great. Thank you. Thanks for sharing. But it's true. It really depends from group to group. And you will feel that like every age group and every group that you get, it's going to be different. So it's going to see, that's why we talk about building a toolbox, because it's going to depend on which situation, what resources you have, and how many parents are there to help, or if you have high support needs kids, or maybe, you know, even the kids can help out with it. So it all depends on the situation, but it's important that you know what you can use at the time. All right, so let's move on to the next strategy. So the next one is communication. Now, these are very, very important. Not just, here we talk a lot about autism, but the truth is that these strategies are good for anyone. Somebody with anxiety, or somebody whose English is not their first language, somebody who is shy, so these are things that we want to promote independence. So these can be used for anybody in your program. You do not need to know a diagnosis to be able to use these strategies. So one of the communication support strategies that we use is, we always say that the less is more. When you try to teach a skill, the less words you use, the better it is. So we like to use what we call the rule of 3. And that's because we can't focus too much in one thing. There is a question there. What do you think? I'm not going to use Menti this time. I'm just going to ask you to put it on the chat. What do you think is an average attention span for a healthy adult? And I'll give you a couple of choices here. Do you think an average attention span is 1 minute, 35 seconds, 3 seconds, or 8 seconds? Here, 4 choices. So 60 seconds, 35, 8 seconds, or 3 seconds. What do you think? Just chat it in the box, that number. 35 seconds, 8 seconds, 35, 8, 60. So the average, thank you very much, the ones that reply, it's about 8 seconds for a healthy adult. Imagine for a child in a different environment. There's so many things going on. So it's hard for them to keep focus in one thing. So when we try to reduce the words, it's going to help them increase their learning process. I'll give you a very simple example. I was at the airport. I was traveling abroad, and I asked one of the passengers, "Oh, do you know where the washroom is?" And the person was very nice, but they gave me so much instructions that I was so dizzy by the time they finished. They said, "Oh, just go straight ahead. Then you're going to turn to the side, and then you're going to see a red sign, and then it's going to be just under that. And then you don't go to the first door, go to the second door." And then by the time it was done, I was almost peeing my pants because it just took so long, and they were trying to be helpful and nice. And then I eventually had to ask somebody else, and that second person just told me, "Straight ahead to your right." It was such a, it was like such a simple instruction, but even though the other person was trying to help me a lot, it just confused me even more. So when we're talking about rule of 3, is trying to give no more than 3 instructions at a time. So if you're trying to teach ball control, instead of trying to explain too much, just using 3 words at a time, you will see it's magic, and it really works. And you see that some kids may even need you to break down even more.
The other
Now
thing,
remember to, yeah.
The other thing is, if you're dealing with somebody who has auditory processing struggles, if there's too many noises that their brain is processing, or if the wrong pitch is happening and they're really trying to focus on what you're saying, the less words you use, the less they have to struggle to figure out what you said.
Exactly. We also it's very important that we allow time, because people process things around them differently. So some people may understand right away and follow instructions, but some may not. You may have to repeat. You may want to wait maybe 5 to even 10 seconds for the participant to be able to respond, or even rephrasing it. Here's a picture, if everybody can see the screen. What do you call this green, I'm going to call it shirt. What do you call this? Oops, sorry. Can you put it in the chat? So some people say soccer vests. Some people use, there you go, see? So that word right there, my son has never heard of it before. So somebody asked him, "Oh, go get the pennies, go get it." And he was like, what do you mean? What? So it took him forever to understand what it was. And it was just a matter of rephrasing it. The minute somebody said, "Go get the green shirt," Ollie went right away and took it. So sometimes we have our own vocabulary in our day-to-day. Like in my office, we have certain vocabulary that we use that everybody knows what we're talking about. But when somebody from outside comes, they're like, "Oh, what do you mean? What do you mean?" So it's same thing. So rephrasing things. I heard a story about this boy who didn't know what a puck was at the hockey program. But when they said, "Oh, the black flat ball," he got it right away. And once he knew, then he was able to relate what puck was. So again, just rephrasing it, breaking it down to even more smaller skills. Here's other green shirt, beach tank top. I like there you go. Okay, so we talked Kayla talked about giving feedback. So we do believe that this really accelerate the learning when you do a nice feedback, and it not just for things that they did right, but also when you want to fix things, when you want to correct things. So instead of saying just "good job," you can say "nice kicking with the side of your foot." Or instead of saying just "nice try," you say "nice try, but next time keep your elbow up. So this is a way that you can build up a bit more. Again, we talked about this a lot. That's because it's one of the key elements for accelerating the learning for the participants. And using visual supports. Visual supports are great. They really increase independency. So when we had COVID, we all knew that we had to stay 2 meters apart, right? Everybody knew that. But having those stickers, remember those stickers on the floor, right? On when you go to the grocery store, the bank, that really helped because we knew exactly where to stand. So things like that helps a lot. I know that most of you are already familiar with things using combs, different colors. In the ice for the ice hockey program, they use the bingo markers. For somebody told us they use this a lot. They use duct tape on their shoe so the kids don't know where they have to hit the ball to kick it. So I think that's a great visual support. You can use tape on the baseball bat or hockey stick to, the position where your hand has to, where the grip is. I have, and I'd like to know your ideas. So on your program, what kind of visual support you use, and let's use the chat. And what kind of visual support you wish you had and you want to implement this. Louise, I totally understand. You said, I have an accent, so this word never sounds right to me. It's true for me too. So I don't even say. Okay, so please write it on the chat. What are the visual supports that you can increase independence on your program? Whiteboard, visual schedules of practice. That's great. Kind of like a checklist. So you have a checklist of all the things that you're going to do. And as you're going through the activities, you can cross it out. These are great. Anyone else? I'll show you before we go into the breakout room. I'll show you this one. So this one that I like to use a lot, it's the go and stop sign. So let's say when you're doing relays or racing or you can use this, or we also have a wait card. So when they know when they have to wait and when it's the next person's turn. So working with these visuals for turn taking is amazing. I also love to use this. This is called the countdown. And when we talk about resources, we're going to leave you a link so you can print your own. You don't have to laminate like we do. It's up to you. We use this because we use with a lot of kids. So having lamination, it helps last longer. So we do 5 more times and then they take it off. All right, 4 more times, 3 more times. And we can even use other kids to help you out with this. You can do it as a group or for one individual. So here, have more comments. So whiteboards with magnets. Yes, great. So you can reuse it a lot. You don't have to keep erasing. I like magnets. More color cones to make instructions more clear. So you stand on the blue cone. That's right. Yeah, I love that. All right, thank you. Okay, so we're going to go on a breakout room again, and we're going to think of a skill you might teach during a soccer program. Work with your breakout group to determine how you could deliver instructions for a particular activity with the rule of 3. So if you can explain in 3 points, what else could you do to keep it accessible? So examples that you can use: passing a ball, dribbling between cones, and playing a game. So let's try to use the rule of 3. And then when we come back, we'll get you guys to show us what you came up with. Okay, let me go back to breakout rooms.
Hi. If you'd prefer to chat, we can use the chat too.
Hello, hello. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Yeah, I just couldn't unmute myself.
No worries. And hi, Erica.
Hi, sorry. I missed what the question was.
This time I actually screenshotted it because I forgot last time. It says,
Right, it was perfect.
think of a skill you might teach during a soccer program, and how could you deliver instructions with the rule of 3 in mind?
Yeah, so I walked down the road and I'm like, hi,
Examples of
I'm
passing a
Mary.
ball, dribbling between cones, or playing a game.
So went back to the rule of 3 because it wasn't kind of clear for me. So
With their two flaggers, Tina and Karina, and it became.
Basically, we want to be able to give an instruction with only 3 points. So it could be like, stand on the blue cone, kick the ball, run there. But you don't want to give like 10 instructions all at once.
perfect. So something we can do with dribbling is have 3 different color of cones. The first one, let's see, reds. We're gonna put them 2 steps apart,
I think I hired.
and that's gonna be dominant and weaker leg.
Because one day they needed another.
Then the green cones, we put them 1 step apart. That's gonna be dominant leg.
And it was,
And the third line of cones is gonna be a white line of cones, and they can go free.
little
So they
stroke
can use any part of their body.
worker, and then you
So there are 3 different levels of dribbling for me. There are 3 different instructions, and the colors are identifying what they have to do.
I just paid the workers. And I literally was.
Yeah, I think the colors are good for sure. And then I think, how would you explain that with 3 points? Like if you had to break it down for a really young child, for example, how would you tell them to do that with only 3 instructions at a time?
Yeah.
Well, the first one is gonna be going just to 1 line. Let's go for the red one.
Front end was all.
And I'm gonna say we're gonna use.
And
I mean, the weaker leg, if that's a really young one, it's gonna be difficult. But even at the young one, we can use either leg. These ones are red and far apart. So we're just gonna go with 1 leg. That's it.
Held it out of the bin for us.
After
Yeah,
they
that's
go
good.
through, after they're going and
We just went to the scrappy
and experience it, we're just gonna move to the white cones or the next line. And I will say the space is shorter, so you need to keep the ball closer.
Neighbor was selling. And it had a camera.
And then when we move to the next line that is kind of free, is when I'm gonna give him give the player the autonomy to they decide what to do
I could put the camper on his
in
truck.
order to cross. So there are simple instructions, but I can explain the 3 lines with simple instructions. We have to go basically with 1 line, second line, and third line.
Legs out of there.
Yeah, 3 for each line. That's great.
That they welded on the camper tie.
Erica, do you want to add anything before we return to the
Camper.
Not much time.
I'm sorry.
I know, I was
That's
like,
okay,
"Oh,
that's
we've got
okay.
30 seconds."
That's all good. It's all good.
And then the white trip. I put that on the road. Laura Williams, who's now like a first aid person.
All right, so we had some reduced numbers of participants for the breakout. That's why I had to move you around. So we had 2 groups this time. Who can tell me an example of rule of 3 that you could do for teaching a skill?
I can lead from my group, and we were talking about dribbling between cones drill, that we can just put same color cones and some distance, and just explain that the distance of the cones are gonna
So cross around this line of red cones with your dominant leg if there is a concept that the kid has on their brain. And if there is not that concept, we can, I mean, let's talk about younger kids. It's gonna be, we're gonna go through this line of red cones with multiple touches. Then next to the line of cones, we can make a different line of a different color with a smaller gap, and we just add something new. So we're gonna go on this green line of cones that are closer with a less amount of touches. So then we just can move to another line of cones. Let's see, yellow cones or white cones. And now we're just gonna give them autonomy to go through those cones on the way they decide.
I see. So you're kind of like building the skill, but the instruction that you're giving to the child is just follow this line and don't touch the cones. So it's kind of like a simple language, but with what you have, you'll be building the skills for like the easier to the more difficult.
Or just with
That's awesome.
different objectives when they can experience, yeah, different, they have to make different decisions as a way to go through the activity.
I see. Very good. Yeah, thank you. That's awesome. Anybody else?
Yeah, I can speak. We had an experience where in a session we had a similar dribbling through cones, but with a widespread cones. Obviously, there was a coach who used silly string, and the silly string was actually sprayed in a S form to show which way to go through the dribbling cones. It added a bit of fun to the activity as well. So yeah, so that was kind of we thought that was a really good idea, and it actually got used with an older age group too. That was pretty beneficial. So yeah.
It's awesome. It provides them like independence. It's a visual right there, right? Like you're communicating through visuals. Like you're just showing them where it is. Just follow this, and that's it.
Yeah,
that's very good.
And it emphasized fun, right? That was a big piece. You know, like having silly string on your cleats and on the soccer ball was a blast for the kids. So.
That's awesome. All right. Any questions about communication, any visual schedules, or how to use the rule of three? Let me check the chat. Right. All right, so let's keep going. Okay, so the last strategy of the day is increasing predictability. So predictability is when you know something ahead of time. And this is something that we do in our daily routine. So instead of going to Menti, I'm just going to ask you to go to the chat and tell me something that you do. So you front load yourself before it actually happens. So for instance, oh, sorry. What type of visual schedules do you use for yourself or your family? So sorry, let's talk. I'm skipping the slides here. First, let's talk about the schedule. So tell me something that you do that helps you planning your day. So one of the things that I like to do is using calendar on my cell phone. Kayla, can you share something that you do as a visual schedule?
I found this new app called Timo that I really like, where it gives you notifications that pop up for everything that you've put in for your day. If you've put them at a specific time, and then you can also put in like, I need to get this done today, doesn't matter what time. And I can look at my list and be like, yep, I got that done, cross it off, got that done, cross it off. Find it very important for helping me remember to drink water. That's one I'm really bad at.
That's very good.
So I put reminders in and it pops up on my phone and I'm like, right.
I have on the chat here, I use calendar app Morgan and several to-do lists for myself. My roommate and I have a big shared calendar on our wall. Very good. Thank you for sharing, everyone. So visuals are very important. So one of the things that we're talking about when we think about predictability is front loading. So when you have a calendar or an app that reminds you, it works the same way. So when we have a two-part schedule, so if you see on the first photo here, you see first then. So you see first, we're going to do a team activity, then you get to go home. So you're predicting what's coming next. We also have a three-part schedule, so we can do like just like a checklist, right? Like you can do first, we're gonna put your socks on, then you're gonna put your cleats, then you get the ball. So you can divide how you front load the schedule in three parts rather than two. I have another note here, mental notes, and my wife reminds me when I forget. That's right. Yes, that's the wife app. The next one is a checklist. So checklists are great. You could do a checklist for everything, really. I'm planning a birthday party for my son. So I have 10 checklists in front of me right now. So as I go through them, I just cross it off and it feels great when I'm able to actually complete. So giving front loading what's coming, it really helps build endurance. Transitions. So you all know some people love certain activities, some don't. So when you are talking about how you can build endurance during non-preferred activities, is giving them warnings. So an example is, okay, 1 more minute left in free kicks, then we get let's say we're going to get to do dribbling, or 10 more seconds to pass me the pedal, or 2 more times, then home time. So this can help with transitions for highly preferred activities. So if they're really having a great time, let's say on their free time, they're all playing, talking to each other, having a snack, and all of a sudden they have to go back to dribbling. It may be not a preferred activity. So giving them the warnings works great. So we like to use the countdown too for minutes as well. So 2 more minutes, 1 more minute. You can use timers on your phone. So things that allows them to process the time. And it's not just like, okay, let's go, let's move on to the next activity. It always takes some time to process. So giving those transition warnings, letting them know when it's going to end, really helps build endurance. Front loading expectations. So this is when you let them know what to expect before it starts. So I do that a lot whenever I go to a restaurant, or if I want to buy something, I always go and check Google for reviews. I go to Expedia, like I go different sites, so I know people's reviews. So I can work with my anxiety and my anticipation towards what I'm going to do, or a restaurant or a place that I'm going to visit. So this works the same. So when you front load expectations, so you let them know before you start, what do you expect from them? And we always try to run away from the no's and don'ts. So instead of saying no screaming, we like to use polite language. Or instead of saying no hitting, no kicking, we try to say keep your hands to yourself. So things like this that can be given to the group before you even start an activity. That way, if something happens and they break the rules, you can go back to them and say, here, remember our team code of conduct? We talked about this before. So it's very important that you do this. So some examples here: try your best, be positive. This here is the team of conduct that we use for our sports program. So we always want to use positive language rather than no's and don'ts. Any questions? All right, please use the chat if you have any questions. I just want to move on to resources because this is an important part here. Okay. Can you see this, the CAN website, Kayla? Yeah, okay. So this is if today we talked about 3 strategies, right? So communication, motivation, and predictability. If you go to the Canucks website, so it's canucksautism.ca, and this is the first page. You click on training and accessibility consultation, and you keep going. There is sports, so you click here on learn more. There is a free training that is done through the Canadian Tire Jumpstart, and it's called Coaching Kids of All Abilities. They have over 8 different strategies. It's about an hour and it's free. You just have to use this code here. It's great. We watch it all the time because it's always a reminder for us before each season. And then here there's more online resources. So the team code of conduct, you can just click and it's a PDF. How to build report. I also want to show you, so if you go back here and you go to recreation, all the visual supports that we talked about, these are all here. So if you keep going, 2 box choices, token boards, countdown trips, these are all PDFs. So if you click here, you can download yourself and you can make it according to what you want for your program. I'm just going to put it on the chat here. There you go. So I send it on the chat, the website, and there you go. Okay. And that's it for today. So again, this is the website. And congratulations. Thank you very much. If you have any questions, we're able to stay a little longer, but I just wanted to say thank you, everyone, for being with us for this past hour and a half. I hope that you can take away one thing. Don't worry if you can't change everything in your program with everything that you've learned, but if you can change one thing, that would be well done. Thank you so much.